He wants you this morning to see the unseen. You receive that? I was reading an article. Actually, I'd read it before, but I was rereading it again. It came to my mind. There was a lady named Linda, and she was not she was visiting some family in Arkansas, some in-laws. And she had to run to the store. I don't know how well documented this is. But at any rate, good article. Good story. She had to run to the store, pick up a few things. As she pulled into her spot, she looked over, and there was a lady in the other car. And she had her hands behind her head and looked like she was just, resting, relaxing. Had her eyes shut. Like some of you are right now. I'm just kidding. Wake up. So Linda didn't really think much of it. Some people, sleep in their car while the significant other does the shopping. So she goes inside, does her business. She's in for a few minutes, comes back out with her cart full of groceries, unloading. And as she's unloading, she keeps looking at the car. And this is her account. This is Linda's account. And at this point, the lady is very bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. Have you ever looked at someone and their eyes tell a story? Have you ever noticed that? They don't have to say what they're thinking. You can see it in their eyes. You call it discernment. You call it whatever. But she looked over, and what she discerned was that something was wrong with this lady in this vehicle. She noticed the windows were up. She noticed the doors were locked. The woman still had her hands behind her head, but her eyes were open, and she looked frantic. And so Linda finally mustered up enough strength and tapped on the window and says, "Are you all right?" And this lady on the inside of the car, she begins to she's frantic, she's shaking. She says, "No, I'm not all right. I can't move my hands. I can't move a muscle. I've been shot. Someone shot me in the back of my head." And she says, "It feels like my brains are coming out of my head, and I am doing my best to keep pressure on this wound." And this lady, Linda, became frantic as the woman in the car was frantic. She runs in to the grocery store. They call the paramedics, the police department, the fire department. Everybody runs out. They're all breaking through the window, getting the door unlocked. Only to find out that because of the heat of the day, apparently a can of Pillsbury donuts exploded and sounded much like a gunshot. And dough had been plastered all over the back of her head. And her hands full of dough, which she thought was her brains. She passed out at first, only to finally regain consciousness, doing all that she could. Because if she moved one of her hands, perhaps she would lose part of her brain. We laugh, but, sometimes we're a lot like the lady in that story. I don't know if that story is true. If it were, I wouldn't want them to use my name either, so. She lost sight of what was going on. She became so consumed with what she thought was going on that she no longer was realizing what it's like the temporal stuff all around us, the temporary stuff. It becomes so heavy and so burdensome that we forget about what's really going on. She lost sight. She lost her vision. She lost understanding. Her reality was that someone had shot a gun and it had found itself in the back of her head. Her brains were falling out. And that she was sitting there holding on to dear life. This woman thought that she was going to die. She could not see. She couldn't see. And like this woman, you and I, we're really not much different, are we? A few little things happen. Can of biscuits gets too hot, pops, blows dough on the back of our neck, and we've thought, and some of you are thinking, that you're breathing some of your last breaths. And then you're getting ready to move on. We get so burdened down by this life that we fail to see things that are held in eternity. And see, that's what God was laying on my heart. It's 2 Corinthians chapter 4. That's the passage that I read. That's the thing that when I was sitting back there, God was laying on my heart. That we need to see the unseen. We need understanding. We need to get a better picture. You know, there's so much more than meets the eye to your situation. You're missing so much. God says, there's some things I'm wanting to show you. I want you to see the unseen this morning. It's not just for me. This gospel, this truth, this message, it is for you. That's what Paul was telling the Corinthians in 2 Corinthians chapter 4. Beginning in verse 16. He says, therefore, do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs them all. So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal. One author put it this way. He says, so we're not giving up. How could we? How could you give up? Even though on the outside it often looks like things are falling apart on us. On the inside where God is making new life, not a day goes by without his unfolding grace. These hard times, I like this, are small potatoes compared to the coming good times, the lavish celebration that has been prepared for us. There's far more than meets the eye. The things we see now are here today, and they are gone tomorrow. But the things we can't see now will certainly last forever. God desires you this morning to see some things that have been unseen. He wants to open your eyes to some stuff that's going on. Lasting stuff. Eternal kind of stuff. Infinite kind of stuff that's going on in your life that you are completely missing. You are so caught up in your situation that you have lost sight of Jesus Christ. God has brought you here today to change that. He wants you to see the unseen.